Hi, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Lisa Heller.
And I'm Jason Anderson, and we're the programmers for the Shortcuts program here at the Toronto International Film Festival. And thank you so much for joining us. We're very happy to have several of the filmmakers with works in Shortcuts Program 5 here with us to talk about the works they're presenting. And I'd love for those filmmakers joining us to introduce themselves and just say the name of their films as well.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Hsiung. I'm the director of Sing Me a Lullaby.
Hello, my name is Alexandra Ramires, also known as Sha, and my film is an animation film that called Thai. In Portuguese is Elu.
And I am Leonardo van Dijl, and I made the short film Stephanie.
And hi, I'm Alexandra. I'm the director of Scars.
Great. Thank you so much all for being here today to speak to your films. We love your films. They're all so amazing. They're all so different. And so we're excited for you to tell us how you decided to showcase this story or showcase this documentary in a couple cases. Tiffany, if you can start with the inspirations behind your film.
Well, Sing Me a Lullaby actually started in 2005, so that's 15 years ago. And I'd have to be honest, when it all started with wanting to create a film for my mom in a way to show her the search and the process of trying to find her path for her and to gift it to her, since she wasn't going to come with us on the trip. And from that process, and also a way to prove that I wasn't just goofing off with my friends and to prove that I was actually going to go on this search. I was 21 years old and very ambitious and very determined. And I'm not sure anyone really believed that I was going to go and do this. And so that's how it started. But very quickly on, once I got to Taiwan and the stories that I would be able to connect with and find, and the people that I was able to speak with and find as well, it's very apparent that this story needed to be told, more importantly, to really honor the legacy of all these women that have come before me and what they have gone through and the sacrifices that they've made as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Jai, do you want to speak to your animation?
My animation is my first film just by my own, because my previous film was a documentary that I co-directed with a friend, Laura, and the film was in TIFF. It was Agua Mall, and it was a documentary. And at the time, I really enjoyed to make the previous film, but I felt when we make documentaries, we have a kind of a pressure to respect the people that we are filming, recording, drawing. And sometimes I want to exaggerate the things, but I couldn't, because I need to respect those people's feelings. So at that time I felt I want to make a fiction, a kind of a nonsense thing, where I can make really weird characters. And I like that dark ambience. I like to explore drawing. I have a lot of reference in visuals, in stories, in short stories. And I want to make this film to have a kind of a freedom on that way. And so I decided to make this really dark visuals and all of that, but with an optimistic point of view about the world, I think. It's a kind of strange film to talk about. It's easier to show. But I think for start, that's it. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Leonardo for Stephanie.
For 3 years, I lived together with a girl. Her name was Stephanie. And she was, when she was young, she did a lot of gymnastics. And in a way, I told her, like, very naive, like, I'm going to make a film about you. because she told me all these stories, and I found it very fascinated. And I started doing, like getting intrigued by the sports. And yeah, so basically that was the inspiration. And yeah, I'm sorry, I still need to, yeah, that's basically the input. I wanted to make a story about my roomie.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Alex?
For me, I think, well, self-harming is of course a very personal subject that I've been wanting to make a film about for quite some years now. And for a long time, I thought this would go through a fiction and fictional character. But thinking about it, I couldn't find a way to really tell the story of both beauty and violence without going into cliches or bad stereotypes. And I finally came to realization that the character that I needed for this story was actually myself. So that's how it all began.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much. And just to sort of maybe just sort of talk further about that incredible courage. I mean, thinking about Tiffany and Alex's films in particular, just this sort of intensely personal and the bravery to make films like these. I think Lisa and I were just sort of blown away by, and I'd love to hear about the kind of what it took to kind of get to that point to being able to make these films, just because it's as artists, I mean, artists deal with this sort of thing all the time, but to sort of go where you do is I think really remarkable. And maybe Tiffany can speak to that first about kind of being able to get to this place.
I mean, I think that documentary, I often joke that it's quite masochistic when you get into the process of making one, especially one so personal. I think it needed to take 15 years, to be honest. I mean, when I first started, I was 21, and I'm glad I didn't make the film then, right after coming back from the search. I'm glad that I took the time that I did, that I was able to process and watch more unravel. And to be honest, I think that I needed to make The Apology, my feature doc, first before I was able to make Sing Me a Lullaby. In fact, I actually don't think either one of those films could actually exist without each other. You learn so much by the people you get the privilege of meeting in the world of documentary. And with The Apology, I got to meet all these grandmothers. And with Sing Me a Lullaby, I got to meet my biological grandmother. And I got to actually meet my mom again in a way that I could have never imagined. And I needed to learn more and grow more in my own skin and be more comfortable in my skin to be able to have that perspective, to be able to ask those questions. I think during the post-production of Sing Me a Lullaby, it became very challenging. It became very vulnerable, and I'm sure Alex might feel this way as well, but in a way, when things become difficult in real life, we can have the option of looking away and avoid it. I didn't realize I was doing that for a big portion of my life while making Sing Me a Lullaby, but while we were in post, I had to almost look even further and closer into my vulnerabilities, my mother's vulnerabilities, my family as well. And it was a difficult process, but one that I just feel like I had the privilege to be able to do it, versus some people who've never had the option of being able to look so closely within their family lineage. And so after getting over that hump and then going back and actually having the conversations that I had to have with my mother on the trip back to Taiwan, I think we were able to make a lot of headways for us to finish the film together. And I couldn't be happier to get to the place that we did, and to actually honor and give ourselves that time, the time needed to process a story like this.
I mean, again, I'm just so grateful that you did, and it's obviously, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of courage and energy. I mean, And I think about that with, I mean, I think about like Sing Me a Lullaby and Scars, and I get very weepy very quickly because they're both such powerful pieces. And I guess talking about, if Alex could talk about that too, just kind of getting to that place of showing that kind of vulnerability you do, which is amazing.
Yeah, I think I can really relate to what Tiffany just said, like the fact that it does take a long time. It did take a long time for me as well to get to actually get into the process of making this movie. Even before we started really making it, some years to really think about it and think, okay, and when I started, it was just me. I thought I'm going to do it alone or something like that. You know, I'll manage. I'll do animations on my own. I'll edit everything again. And so when I started doing the recordings, I would do them on my own at home with nobody else. And I thought I was going to edit them myself. So there was no fear of being judged or being heard, because I thought even if I ever give that to someone, I will have edited whatever I say before. In the end, actually, I ended giving everything to the editor. So she had to work with a very, very raw material, and it definitely brought some vulnerability and I think authenticity to the film. Yeah.
Well, I just, thank you for going there, because it really is such an amazing film. But it is, I mean, you can't imagine this is an easy film. But thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. We'll look forward to listening to a little bit more that you have to say in a minute. But Leonardo, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the vulnerability that you're able to show in Stephanie, in this character, and the representation of this young, ambitious athlete as she begins to understand her own agency in her world. If you are able to kind of walk us through how you wanted to represent this character and how you wanted it to differ from other athletic representations out there right now. You're currently just on mute, so we'll ask you just to unclick.
Yeah, sorry. So for me personally, I feel there is, in concerning girls and women in sports, there is a problem in representation, because somehow it's difficult for I guess society to accept that a girl can just be by nature competitive. As so often you see in films, what happens is that somehow they are the victim of, for example, let's say a repressive mother, or they are the victim of the coach, or for example, they are very jealous of somebody in their sports, in ballet or whatever, and that, like, gives them the motivation to become better. And I wanted to tell a story about somebody who just wanted to be the best in a very like honest way, just for herself, not even like because she wants that medal, but just because she has this idea that she wants to do it perfectly, and not really like give an explanation to why this is. And yet at the same time, I found it very interesting in gymnastics. The moment you need to be on the top of your game is around 16, 17 years old. So that means, while in other sports, for example, let's say you are 20, 23, when you need to be at the top of your game. So that means basically when you're 11, 12, you are in a way on your sports already, maturity wisely, or something like 16 years old. And I found it very interesting, this contrast between the gymnastics, where everything is so bright and so pretty, and like for people can appear even as something superficial, and and show how this character is very mature and at the same time still a child. But in a way, for me, it was very important to show that she is not a victim of the sports, and that she, you know, like somehow is able to carry her own fate, if that makes any sense. Yes, she's fragile, but I hope she's not too fragile.
Yeah, we really thought that you were able to strike that perfect balance with this character. So that's what really stuck out to us about the film. This character representation. She's just so complex, but has this vulnerability, but this, you know, force behind her, and the relationship that she has with her coach, I think, is really unique as well. So thank you for telling us a little bit more about that.
I'm just thinking about that. I mean, there's always this sort of long process. I mean, I wanted to talk to Shah about Thai, because it is such an interesting balance too. You have a kind of, it opens so strange and so avidly surreal, and these sort of, in this place that these sort of human-like figures that aren't necessarily, and yet so much emotion kind of gradually sort of, you start to understand this. There's a sort of emotional content, which is quite surprising too. And I guess I was curious about her process in sort of discovering the story. I mean, did it sort of start with these sort of abstract, surreal drawings that you started to understand what maybe they were to you, or what they could mean to you? Oh, sorry, you just have to sort of unmute, start over. Thanks.
Oh, it's okay now? Can I talk? Okay.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Thanks.
I think it's really common in our lives, the effort that we need to do to adapt to the cities, to the environment, to the other people, to other behaviors, to other. It's something that I think a lot. How much should I adapt to the other, and where should I stop? And so it's a kind of a question that I always have in my relationships with the world and with the people, with animals, with death, with everything. And one day I was reading a book that it's a book about, it's like a dictionary about imaginary places. That it's the places that exist in literature. And there was a part that they were talking about a land that it's part of the Wizard of Oz. And in that book, there was a characters that have a huge body and a really, really small head. And they were really dummy. And they used a huge mask to cover how dummy they were. They were because the size of his head. And I felt, oh, it's strange that you have to understand. Sorry. It's strange. How we associate the physical things to psychological things, and I thought, I like this character, but I think there is something here that I don't like, so let me try to figure out some story for this image. And then I create the other character that will be the opposite, and we all look for adaptation, for love, for complementarity. So I thought about why not to make a story that there is a possible to fit people with handicap that are not really comfortable with their own, or with their body, or with their mind, or physically they are a bit handicapped. And just try to build a story where all of this is possible. And the idea of adaptation was the main thing. Even with the dog, the death of the dog, all the process is trying to understand and accept and adaptate to the fact that his best friend died in the best way, to make music from his own bones. So I think this was the start, but suddenly I start to get to understand more views that are possible from this this story, and but I won't say everything. I like people have their own opinion as well, but because I think it's open film, that it's possible to be seen in a really different ways, and this was mine way of seeing it. Yeah, that's it.
Great, thank you. And actually, I'm curious about the animation process for Scars too, just because I mean, it's another layer for the film for sure. I mean, how did the animation technique develop for that? I mean, obviously it's you know, you're already a very vulnerable point, but then to actually also go back to these images and animate them is amazing.
Yeah, this kind of visuals, I already had tried that in drawings, just in drawings, and I thought I would like to try this.
Thanks.
Oh,
The
sorry.
animations is. Can you hear me?
Oh, actually, I was. I think. Shah was answering too, so we'll segue to you as well. But Shah was.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, I think it was. I asked a confusing question, so I didn't perfect my segue. But Shah, you want to continue first?
Okay, sorry. Okay, so and well, I have a strong connection with printmaking, several techniques of printmaking, and there is kind of wooden printmakes, you know, I don't know how to say it in English, that you draw in white. And I really love the exercise that you have to draw light instead of draw the shadows. So, but make another film in a printmaking technique would be complex, and I want to do it a bit simpler because this time I was directing by my own, and so I need to keep it a bit more simple. So I use the way of thinking of printmaking, but in drawing, like the idea to invert. So I draw everything in the opposite, me and my team. For example, I need the white part, I need to do it completely dark. And I need to think like as a negative. And then we took a picture with the phone and tried to understand if it's work or not. And as in printmaking, you never see your final result. You need to make a process to see the final image. So it was still a bit complex, but I really liked, and the graphite powder, it's something that really helps to create some environments. And this is something that I have done it before in drawings, but it was really nice to have the chance to do it in animation. And
That's great, thank you. And it's so distinctive, and that's something I think is something I love about your style. And I'm sure Alex, has similar experiences as an animator too. There's some of these challenges, and I guess we could talk a bit more about how the animation approach to Scars developed too. Oh, Alex, can you hear me?
Yes, now, sorry, I sometimes have some waiting. I must say first that I really love the animation in Alexandra's movie, so congratulations on that. And about Scars, how we did this animation, always had this idea of black sort of ink running through the body, using the body as a canvas. And the process for making it is several months before shooting. We did some picture tests with the director of photography, and we tried, we just tried a lot of different shots on the body, and these pictures that we made, I worked on them really like a canvas to find ideas. I already had some ideas, but to find more, and knowing also, because I already did the audio recordings by then, so knowing what I wanted to say with this movie and where we were going, trying to find ideas of animations. And then we did the actual shooting, and the editing, and animatics, which is like animations, and then it all came to life little by little.
Great, thank you so much. Each one of your films deals with a challenging topic, either personal or theoretical, but they all also end on a more optimistic note in some ways, or a more hopeful note. Is there something specific that you took away from the film that surprised you? And is there anything that you are hoping that audiences will really take away from your film? Maybe we can start with Leonardo.
I'm very sorry, but I'm afraid I don't really understand your question. Can you talk a bit?
No, absolutely. Is there anything that surprised you during the making of your film that you didn't expect would happen? Anything that you took away from the film? And is there anything specific, a specific feeling that you're hoping the audience will get from watching your film?
I don't really have the feeling that I took anything away of the film. It was a very strange film for me, because in a way, it was like while I was editing, I discovered that that this, because I see it as a very classical film. It doesn't has a lot of bravo, or like I don't know, like how do you say it, like like also in cinematography, it's not like super inventive. It's just like classical, well made in a way, like I hope to the point. And it doesn't really look like, I don't know, like the next episode of Euphoria, whatever. Yeah, while making while editing, I really, and that was amazing, because I actually edited with an editor, Ludo Troch. He's like a very good established editor in Belgium, but he's also 75. And he was for me the best, because he was like, I don't know, like he had this kind of, like calmness, and not like he just wanted to edit my film because he liked the project. And we didn't really have to make it as if we had to prove something to somebody else. So that was amazing. So thank you very much, Ludo, for helping me. And then what I hope that the audience will take away from that is just, I always tried in a way to, to work with this kind of cliches and to give them a little bit of depth and meaning. So, like next time we look at, for example, let's say, like the coach of Tiffany, you would assume that she's a total bitch. And then actually you see that she has a very interesting struggle. And also she's in a way, like, let's say, like, she's also like, she's not always correct maybe, but in a way she's also part of a system. And I like the way how Tiffany looks at her with mercy, and like, and Linda, Patricia does exactly the same towards Tiffany. So I hope in that way, like, that we can, look out a little bit more for each other sometimes, instead of judging. So yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. And Tiffany?
I mean, what surprised me while making this film was, I mean, it was a bit scary as well to realize how similar I am to my mother. And it was that defining really that last trip that we had together, going back to Taiwan in the New Year's, and seeing so much of myself in her, and I think she feeling the same way about me. And I think that was surprising and annoying at the same time for the both of us. And maybe that's where we found some understanding, where maybe some of our challenges lie in not understanding each other, is because we're just also trying to understand ourselves. But I think also just a really interesting fact while making this film that I found out was that, I'm not going to get into like the technical debate, but I found out that while my mother was in my grandmother's womb, a part of me, half of me, already existed in my mom's ovaries. So essentially, like, my grandmother impartial carried me as well, because yeah, it was just a very interesting fact that I learned about while making the film, which really makes sense to my connection to my grandmother. But I think overall, especially during the times that we are in right now, where we're all yearning for a sense of connection with each other, and and the more that we can connect can bring us back to a bit of this place of normalcy or where we were before. And I feel like it was a very strange thing that my post-production led even through during the lockdown, and that I was able to really be, you know, bounded into my home and to really have that focus. But I think one thing that I really hope when people watch this film is that they can realize that maybe sometimes things don't start with us, that there is a history that exists long before, you know, we existed, they existed, and perhaps we can find lessons and if not the value in those who have lived before us. And I think that that can bring us some peace and a sense of belonging, which I feel like we can all need at this time and age right now where we're in. And that gives me hope. And even though it is a bittersweet story told through my mom, I'm surprised by how universal it can be, because I think that there always will be in a moment in time where we are yearning for a sense of connection or belonging, or not understanding why someone, a loved one, is the way that they are, and we're just so frustrated, that there is something beyond us and beyond the time that we've existed. And I hope that this might spark that curiosity in viewers' mind to delve into their own life and to ask those questions as well, especially before it's too late.
You're gonna make me cry. That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And Sha?
So, for me, one of the things that it was the bigger lesson I think that I took from the film, well, when I did the previous film, it was documentary, as I said before, and to talk about the film and defending the film and thinking about the film, it wasn't so difficult because I was talking about the reality, something that exists, something that was really concrete. And in this case, it was really hard for me to explain, to talk about the film, because usually I think I rationalize a lot the films, and with this one, it was a bit difficult to do it. It was a kind of too free. And I was really afraid to do it because of that, because I could not explain why I was doing that and why I want to make the film. Sometimes I start, but I get lost. I was talking about everything in the world, trying to make it fit on the film, but well, I was just doing it because I want to do it. And afterwards, it was really nice to do it anyway, even if I wasn't really able to explain why I want to do this film. And in fact, I think that I could express feelings in the film or emotions that I'm not really able to do it in words. And not all of the things are possible to put it into words. So the fact that I opened myself to do it something that I could not explain so well, I think it was something that I really enjoyed to do it, and I enjoyed the result. And when you ask me what I want people to see in the film, it's kind of a hard question, because even for me it's hard to understand what I want to, what should I see the film, but now there is something that happened that is really nice, that the few people that I shown the film, each people see a really different subject. Even the transsexual thing, the masks thing, the fear of the death, love, adaptation, and suddenly I looked at the film as a Rorschach test, you know, that you show the things to people, okay, what you see here? And I think it's an exercise that I didn't plan to do it, but it's really nice to see what people see in the film. So when people will see the film for the first time, I really try to don't say anything, because I'm really surprised quite often with the viewers' reaction. And this is one of the most beautiful things of this film, I think. But for me, the main thing is, as I told you, adaptation, love, and that effort that we do to adapt to everything. That's it.
Great. Thank you so much. And Alex.
For me, just if I think back a few years ago, I couldn't even use the word self-harming about myself, especially in French, my native language. It was like, it had nothing to do with me. It wasn't me. It wasn't part of my story. I couldn't just use this word. So the film really surprised me about that, in really opening the dialogue and releasing the words for me. Now I'm able to say, well, I made a film and it's about self-harming and it's my personal experience. And I really hope that people will take that away from the film, you know, that it will open the dialogue and break the silence and the taboo around self-harming.
Well, thank you again. Lisa and I just want to express our gratitude to all of you for making these films, and Al, how happy we are to get to present them here. So that's all the time we have, but we're thanks for making films, and thank you viewers for being here too. So we very much look forward to whatever films are in your future as well. So thanks again.
Thank you so much for having us and programming our stories.